Dark humor. I mean, I'm pretty dark and I think I'm pretty funny. But anyway, dark humor is a point of contention for a lot of people, especially if you spend a lot of time on the internet where it basically lives. I guess I should say. It's not as big of a topic as a lot of celebrities, YouTube, Twitch channels, and politicians are, and in terms of news and entertainment, they'll continue to be relevant, but every so often, someone from one of the groups that I just mentioned decides to make a joke that is funny to them, I guess, and this joke usually falls into the vein of dark humor. And most people will also think the joke is funny. Maybe it's not as funny to the audience as it is for the person who made the joke. That's how it usually is with things on YouTube or Twitter or Twitch or something like that. But for some people, it just seems to rub them the wrong way. I mean, I don't particularly blame them. Even I have times where I'm listening to jokes that people tell or jokes on Twitter that I see and I'm like, yeah. Some people don't enjoy it at all, and anytime anything close to a joke like that comes up, they express their discomfort, maybe even go as far as to demand an apology or call for a deep platforming of the person in question, which I guess more often in these times is a bit excessive. I look at it on a case-by-case basis, but these events are all things that happen on the internet constantly, probably even simultaneously, and it's all due to dark humor. We're going to talk about that right here on Double Take. Dark humor is also known as black comedy, dark comedy, morbid humor, gallows humor, and it's found all over the internet. But before the internet we know today, people went to comedy clubs to get their fix. Comedians like Anthony Jeselnik, Lenny Bruce, Frankie Boyle, Bill Burr, Jim Norton, to name a couple, are known for this kind of humor, and they've been criticized for their comedic preferences, so this topic transcends all boundaries of entertainment and just general life. So enough history, time to ask you some questions to get your mind going. Where does the term dark humor stem from in your mind? What does it create? Do you like this idea of dark humor? Why or why not? Do you think other people feel the same way as you? If so, why or why not? What do you think would have to change for you to change your answer to the questions that I just asked you? Chances are you're not a fan of the concept of dark humor, and you answered the first 3 questions in a negative way, and I think I know why. I think for most people at least, their first encounter with dark humor was, if not actual bullying, perceived bullying as a result of being the butt of the joke, making the victim feel isolated or disconnected from the rest of the group, and this feeling most likely blossomed in middle or high school. I don't know, just a hunch. The concept of dark humor, making such harsh jokes about otherwise not humorous situations, is inherently grating to a society that claims to uphold kindness and respect as a value to the best of its ability. On the subreddit r/changemyview, user TT454 made a post criticizing dark humor, calling it absolutely shameful, going on to say that it's a callous enjoyment of the extreme pain of others. Instead of feeling sympathetic towards people whose lives have been destroyed, those that enjoy dark humor feel the complete opposite way. It's harmful to society. The user did end up becoming more welcoming to the idea of dark humor after, but some would say that people with this mindset are more sensitive people. Of course, this is only one side of the same coin. Some would also argue that dark humor isn't just jokes to appease the ones telling the jokes, but rather to help ease the minds of those who might need a laugh. Now, I know this might seem like a long shot in some of you guys' minds, but just hear me out here. This might be worth your while. To help me with explaining what I'm getting at here, I'm accompanied by an article by Gizmodo Australia, because this is a lot of information I'm about to throw at you here. This is a bit extensive, so brace yourselves. Please, I'm like 100% serious here. Most people who like dark humor claim to use it as a crutch in certain situations. In other words, people use it to raise the metaphorically cold temperature in the room by figuratively breaking the ice and quote unquote using comedy to show that you have successfully coped. Let me read you an excerpt from this article to paint you a picture. People's ability to cope and the value of humor is profound. My co-author and I spoke to a Holocaust survivor who talked about there were at times moments of laughter and levity in her concentration camp. So if the victims of the worst genocide in history were able to cope with that, we should be able to deal with the threat of the virus, as most of the fear in this situation has to do with its uncertainty. It seems like dark humor is also used to help people forget about their closely personal issues. Making fun of the issue can be a good way to make the problem smaller in your mind and essentially make it easier for it to get solved due to just confident thinking. Here's another excerpt. I've done some research on seemingly ironic social outcomes of self-deprecating humor, where we typically find decreases in stress responses amongst both the humor's recipients, i.e. the audience, and the humorists themselves. To put it another way, if you can imagine the stress associated with giving a big speech at some large event, research shows that you might be able to reduce it by starting off with a solid self-directed joke. Though a little more complicated, a lot of my work demonstrates similar effects even with identity-related humor like race, gender, sexuality, and religious affiliation. Though it seems even more counterintuitive, dark humor might be an equally visible method of anxiety reduction in dire situations that seem completely hopeless or out of a person's control. This type of humor is typically found alongside death and destruction, usually amongst doctors and nurses in hospital ERs and oncology units, soldiers in the trenches during wars, wartime refugees, first responders, and many others, and serves an important, albeit a seemingly callous function to keep spirits high, stress low, and maintain a sense of security when none seems to exist. I've heard of this before, but what this is saying is that dark humor is also used to look on the bright side of tragedies. We use humor to cope with stress. Humor helps us to feel good and can be a source of self-medication. Humor helps us increase our ability to control the situation. Humor involves deviation from social norms. When dark humor jokes are made, we can see that the literal meaning is absurd, but the funny meaning has some truth to it. For example, we all remember 2019 when the whole toilet paper hoarding conundrum happened. People thought that the hoarding was absurd, so poking fun at it made sense. Terrifying situations produce anxiety. Death anxiety in particular is very common. We use humor to deal with this anxiety, to deliberately poke fun at the very things which terrify us. Getting the joke in some ways is like having control over our fears. So all this information I just threw at you can show that a lot of people, probably people you know and are even close with, are using dark humor to combat frustration and unhappiness and also bring joy to themselves and others. While you have people who enjoy dark humor as a recurring and habitual form of comedy, there are also just as many people who think that dark humor is a barbaric, senseless pastime for those who want to laugh at the pain and expense of others. So how do we bridge the gap? What are dark humorists doing that's turning some people off to their style of humor? Well, I have a couple of ideas. A lot of dark humor involves not just unfortunate situations or crimes like murder, assault, hanging, suicide, self-inflicted wounds, mental disorders, or anything like that. It can also involve certain details about demographics of people and the suffering of others, which can be a bit tricky. When it comes to people's life experiences, whether it's just normal human society things or more demographic specific events, they can be real traumatic depending on what exactly happened, and with that comes very, very dangerous territory in terms of humor. When making commentary at the expense of others, make absolutely fucking sure the specific person you're joking about is okay with it. I've been seeing way too many motherfuckers just going ham like they're at a fucking comedy club and it's amateur night. Speaking of amateur night, dark humor works like any other kind of humor. Comedy and making people laugh is not something that can be forced. Don't try too hard, because if you do, people have a chance of finding you obnoxious because you're overusing a joke or telling a joke that people clearly don't find funny or possibly not great at delivery. Don't worry, it happens to the best of us, And plus, what's the point of continuing to do something if it isn't giving you the results you want? Not a good look, honestly. I know all of this from experience, unfortunately, so just take it from me. If you want people to laugh with you and be in on the joke that you're telling, you gotta show them they can. I think the easiest way to do that is gallows humor, which is a more special type of dark humor that focuses on the humorist, or in other words, the one telling the joke. Most people are very familiar with this type of dark humor because they do it subconsciously when comforting a friend or family member. Thanks for watching. If you have any words of knowledge to disperse among the people watching this video, or if you want to divulge knowledge on a detail I didn't mention, feel free to do it down in the comment section down below. And remember, laughter is fuel for the heart. That's not like a quote or anything, it's just something I made up. But anyways, thanks again for watching, and keep an eye out.